welcome to Trance Mondays. I'm your host Sansrold, and today we're going to be creating this sound. Okay, before we get started, as always, please make sure to like my Facebook page. The preset for this tutorial will be up on there if you can't get the desired results. And make sure to follow me on Twitter if you desire. It's not mandatory. Generally, I rarely use it, but I usually put tips on there. Also, we're going to be starting a new podcast, me and a friend of mine by the name of Gabriel Blue. And pretty much we're asking people to submit their tracks. And pretty much the whole requirement is that your track isn't signed, that it has an intro and outro that I will get into in Trance Mondays eventually, how to make them, and also pretty much just not be like a cover of something. It needs to be original work. It can be a remix, it can be an edit, but as long as you change something in your track. Okay, so that should be it. It's gonna be called The Evolution of Sound, and I'm planning on releasing the first one on February. So if you want to get on that, let me know, and it'll be fun and it'll motivate you to finish your tracks. Alright guys, so without all the fucking intro out, let's get started. So in all my tutorials, if this is the first video watching, I like to explain everything. Please make sure to follow along, and I'll try my best to explain everything in down to earth terms. And by that I mean I'm not gonna be reading what the manual says. I'm gonna be telling you guys what effect it gives the sound and so forth, and try and give you a visual representation of that if it's applicable. Okay, so in Oscillator 1, we're gonna be putting the main source of the sound. And generally, like, something I tell people is whenever you're playing a chord or whenever you're creating a sound, the thing that's going to stand out the most is going to be what oscillator is playing highest. Or if you're playing a chord, what note is the highest? Like, is it the fifth? Is it the third? And so forth. So whatever note is the highest, that's the one that's going to pretty much lead and create the harmony. So here we have the Polysaw being the highest, because we have an envelope here messing with the pitch. Okay, so that's a tip. So in our first oscillator, we're going to be putting pretty much what's making this sound the poly bass, and we're going to be using a Polysaw 2 basic wave. And here we have the wavetable position. So pretty much with a wavetable position, and that's the thing with Massive, it's a type of subtractive synthesizer. And pretty much what happens, and here I can show you on the Virus TI real fast, is here we have a normal sine wave. If you go into Massive, and you can see there's a sine square, sine triangle, and then there's a square saw, right? So pretty much the whole thing is that the whole idea is that you can turn a sine wave into a saw wave, into a square wave, and into a triangle wave. So if I turn this knob here, you're going to see the wave inside changing into a saw. So there I have a saw. Now if I turn it more, we go into a square. So pretty much your wavetable positions, like the one in Massive, gives you the same thing to mess around with, but it does it in a different way. The Virus TI uses the sine wave to create the saw and the square, and Massive is using pretty much all variant types of waves here. And pretty much what happens is when you change the wavetable position, you're changing the way the wave is going to look, and in result, you're changing the way it's going to sound. So here we have the wavetable position all the way to the left. Whenever people ask me stuff about wavetables, I'm just saying it's really not knowing like what's happening to it. Just listen with your ears and hear if that's the sound you want to get out of it. So wavetable positions are pretty fun to mess around with. It's scary in a way because sometimes, it doesn't give desired results, but generally it should if you're messing with standard waves like this, like the Polysaws and the saws and so forth. Okay, so wavetable position all the way to the left. Next we have the intensity. We move it all the way to the right. Intensity, really hard to explain. Like to me, if you lower the intensity, you turn the sound soft so it doesn't hit as hard. So generally I always keep the intensity up no matter what. I never dabble with it. Hopefully next episode I can explain a little bit better, but I've never messed around with it. I always leave it all the way up. Amp all the way up is where the volume comes out. Next we have our filter here. We're routing it to filter 1. So when this thing is all the way up, it's all filter 1. And if you see here, we're not using a filter too, so there's no need to have it down here. Okay. Okay, so here we have filter 1 now. Now we go into oscillator 2. We're going to be putting a rough math 3 oscillator, wavetable position all the way to the right. We're going to lower the pitch by 12, intensity all the way to the right, and we're going to leave the amp all the way down. We're going to be applying a macro later on, so we can add the sound if you choose to add it. Okay, and we're going to leave that in the center. Next, we have oscillator 3. We're going to be having a square saw 1 wave. And pretty much here, we're going to turn the wavetable position all the way to the left. And like I showed you guys in the virus TI, the visual representation of changing the sine into a saw and that saw into a square. Same thing's happening here. But the thing is that's all the way to the left. So what we have is a perfect square wave. We're going to lower the pitch of the square all the way down to -24. So this is going to be the low end of the sound. And we're going to lower the volume down on that to 12. So the amp. And the intensity stays up. And we're going to route that all the way to filter 1. Next, we go into the modulation oscillator. We're going to lower the pitch down by 12. We're going to go into the phase section and pretty much just move it a little bit up, and that's about it. Next, we go into the noise section, and the noise section of Massive it's a really, really good one in the sense that it gives you a lot of options. Some of them are really, you're going to be like, how the hell am I going to use this? But you got to keep in mind, once you start applying filters to these sounds, like the metallic or the paper water pipes and so forth, they start sounding decent. And generally the noise section, if you're making EDM, you're going to be using bright noise and white noise the most, and all these other ones are for sound design artists who are composing for film or trying to make certain sounds, like, you know, like in Transformers, they make like the machines punching each other. Someone has to make those sounds. It's not like they're just made, you know. So those sounds are really, really ideal for atmospheric type of stuff. But right now what we're going to focus is we're going to use a bright noise here. We're going to leave the amp down because we're going to apply a macro later, and you're going to leave it in the center. Actually, you know what, route it all the way to filter 1. Next, we go into the feedback section, and we're going to move that all the way to 10 o'clock, and we're going to leave it in the center. Next, we go into insert 1, which is an S shaper. Where is it? The sine shaper, and pretty much just leave it the dry and wet down and the drive up. I don't even know why I have it, honestly. Like, we're not using any sines right now. And you know what? Don't even put insert 2. Not necessary. Okay, so here we go to filter 1. We're going to be putting a low pass 4 filter. The 4 and the 2 you see next to the low pass is pretty much just the type of filter. Generally, what I've noticed is that the higher the number, the more of the sound is going to be taken away the fastest. So use it to your knowledge. I mean, you can experiment with both and see which one you like the most. But for this sound, we're using a low pass 4. We're moving the cutoff all the way down. So just move it all the way to the down. Resonance is going to be set at 9 o'clock. I've explained what resonance is, but just again, resonance is this. If you go into Ableton's auto filter, you're going to see your cue. The resonance is this. So that's what you're affecting with the resonance. Generally, you move the resonance, and you can also LFO it to add movement to the sound, and it's been a big part of sound design ever since the Moog filters. So pretty much just leave resonance at 9, and that's about it. Now you're going to move this knob here all the way up, and all this knob is the volume. So you want to put it all the way up so your volume doesn't decrease from transferring from the oscillator into the filter. Okay. Okay, once we have that, now we can go into envelope 4 here. So here we have the blues and the greens in Massive. So the blues are envelopes, and what envelopes are is they go by the ADSR. So you're going to be pretty much, you could say, modulating or changing knobs via envelope characteristics. And I explained what ADSR is in my previous video. If you didn't see it, ADSR, just a quick summary, is attack is going to decide how fast that knob is changed to the value you set to it to be max. Decay is going to decide how fast it goes down to the sustain level, and then the release is going to decide how fast from the sustain level to the regular, the normal value the knob was at. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The release is gonna decide how fast the sustain goes back to normal value. So generally we start down here. The attack decides how fast we turn the knob or whatever we're modulating to the value you have set. Then it decreases to a certain value, and the decay is gonna decide how fast that happens. And then we have our sustain, which is our level. And then the level is going to decide at what value it's going to stay at till the release kicks in. And then the release is going to decide how fast it goes back to 0. So if I put the release up, you'll see we have a long release. Okay. Okay, so let's put our attack all the way to 8 o'clock here. Level all the way up. We want the full max volume. Next, we go into decay, leave it at 12, level at 12 as well, and then release set to around 10 o'clock. Okay, now we're going to go into envelope 2. Now remember I was talking about envelopes modulating certain things. Now this is where we get into it. So pretty much what we have here is oscillator 1. We're going to be using envelope 2 to modulate it, making sure I don't need to modulate other stuff. So envelope 2 is going to be routed to the pitch of oscillator 1. And you can see it's going to be altering it to 48. So it's going to increase this pitch by 48 up. That's all that's saying. The most important thing is here. So we have a really, really fast attack. Level is going to be set to 3 o'clock. So we're going to put the attack all the way down, level to 3 o'clock. And then our decay is going to be like around 7, 8 o'clock. So just move it a tad bit, like 2 nudges up. Level, you're going to keep it all the way down. And our release is going to be set to all the way down as well. We're going to have, I believe, no, we don't have a delay on that. Okay, so once we have that, that should be it. Next thing you're going to do is the way you apply the envelopes is you're going to see these little boxes underneath every parameter here. Every parameter that has a box underneath is going to be, you're going to be able to envelope or LFO it. So that's a neat feature by Massive. It gives you so much freedom to do that. So here we got our envelope 2. You're going to click on it and hold. You're going to see the 2 by your mouse. You're going to take it over here. It's going to be at 0. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the left and push it all the way up to 48. And once you have that, then it's pretty much done. So number 2 resembles the second envelope here. Now we go into envelope 3, which is going to be applied to our filter 1. Now, this is a technique a lot of people use, and it's really you can go 2 different ways in doing this, but a way that I like to do it is I like to use a filter, and I like to put the cutoff all the way down and then set the value to how high I want it to come out. And then I use an envelope to move that filter fast so you can create sounds. Technically, it sounds better. You can do the same thing through envelope 4, which I'll get into in another tutorial. But just keep that in mind. There's more than one way. Okay, so let me go here. Envelope 3. So envelope 3, you want your attack all the way down, level all the way up. Your decay is going to be set to between 12 and 1. Level all the way down for your decay, so no sustain at all. And our release is going to be set to 8. And now we're going to route that to filter 1 here. So you're going to click it, click the 3 and put it underneath the filter cutoff. It's going to look like this. You're going to click and drag up till the blue reaches around 2 o'clock. Actually make it 1 o'clock around there. You don't want much of the fuzziness coming out. Okay, once we have that, then we're pretty much done with the hard part of the sound. Now what we're going to do is go into the voicing. In our voicing, we're going to put the unisono up to 4. What unisono means is just another word for voices, so just remember that. And Massive has a max of 16 voices per oscillator that you can play. Our pitch cutoff is going to be turned on. We're going to be applying a macro to this to detune it if you desire. Next, we have our wavetail position. This is going to decide again what I showed you guys. And we're going to move that in like 2 lines before the center here, the big center line. So just do that. And our value here is going to be set to 100, and our value up here in the pitch cutoff is set to 0.50. Next, we go into our pan position. This is going to be a little bit of a hybrid between mono and full inversion. So pretty much all that is the way the sound's coming out. Is it going to be wide? Is it going to be in the center? So this is just dead in the center, but still giving a little bit of freedom for the sound to kind of expand a little, but not too much. Since it's a harmonic type of bass, you generally don't want to set that into mono. Okay, so once you have that, make sure it's polyphon. Polyphon means you can play more than 1 note. And then here we have our trigger, and just set it to always triggering. Okay. So once we have that, we go into effects 1. we're going to have a dimension expander. And what a dimension expander does, it expands the sound. So a ways to do it is just go into your whatever, if you have a spectrogram. I use the Ozone one. And pretty much what's going to happen is, let it pop up. Here we have our spectrogram, and this is the vector scope, sorry. And here we have our field. So the more dimension expander you add, the more the sound's going to spread out. If you have a sound set to mono, pretty much you're just going to see a little line here. And I'll show you guys that in another tutorial when we start dealing with kicks and so forth, because that's going to be really important, setting your sounds to mono. Okay, so now we go into, for dimension expander, you want to set it to around 8 o'clock and our size to 10. Next, we go into delay sync, and a delay is pretty much just a delay, like an echo of the sound. And we're going to set the dry and wet to 9 o'clock, our damp to 1 o'clock, our feedback to 1. And for your left, you want the pattern of 1/8, and to the right, 3/16, okay? Next, we go into our EQ section of massive. And what's going to happen is we are going to be applying a boost of 4. Frequency is going to be set to 4 o'clock, and our high shelf is going to be set to around 2 o'clock. I already explained what these things are in the previous tutorial, so make sure to check that one out if you haven't seen it. Once we have all that, our sound should be done, and you should be getting the desired results. Okay, now we're going to be applying a couple of macros. Macros are a great way to evolve your sound and change it over time if you choose to. First macro we're going to be applying to is going to be to our dimension expander. So here we're going to be applying it, and you're going to click this arrow here. You're going to drag it underneath dry and wet, and size as well. So this is going to correlate, and we're just going to move this a little bit up, and we're going to move this a little bit up like that. And you're going to put expander or whatever you want underneath it. Next one, we're going to be putting it on the delay, just down to, if you don't want the delay, you want to get rid of it. And then just, you know, when it's up here, it's going to be all the way down, which is kind of weird, but whatever. So you just click again, drag the 2. You're going to click on it and drag down. You can put this one if you want. You don't need to. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put one in the pitch cutoff here. This is going to be the detune. And all that is, it's going to be, it's just going to detune the sound a bit. Since we're using saws, the best things to detune are always saws and squares. So pitch cutoff. So what you're going to do is drag the 3 here. It's going to look like this. Just drag it all the way to the dead center, like that. And once we have that, we should be done with the sound. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a lot of things. Remember to come back next week to create a new sound as we get more and more into deeper, more complicated sounds. As always, I try to explain everything to the best of my knowledge. Please try to make a similar bass or something to see if you learned something. Remember, Polysaw waves are more harmonic. Just for a little review, Polysaw waves are more harmonic. Envelopes are a great way to alter a sound through the filter. Our envelope 4 and massive is always routed to the amp. Our noise section can be used for more than just noise. It can be used to create other interesting sounds, ambient sounds. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. Please make sure to like my Facebook page. Remember about the podcast. If you need to submit an entry, look in the description. There'll be an email. Send your submissions there. And I make sure I always check them all out, and I let you know what I think of the track and if it's ready or not. And yeah. Anyways, guys, this has been Trance Design episode 2 or 3, and I'll see you guys next week.